A bright college student vanished at 1:30 a.m., leaving behind her purse, keys, and dreams. 5 weeks later, her bones were found in the desert. The only clue, a man named Doug, who was never seen again. Welcome to Case Crime Confidential. Today, we're diving into the chilling mystery of Diane Abel, a 24-year-old accounting student who disappeared from her dorm room one quiet September night in 1988. Her body was later found in the desert, but her killer was never caught. Who was Doug? Why did she leave at 1:30 a.m.? And why, after all these years, is her case being reopened? Let's unravel the timeline, piece by piece. But long before she became a headline, Diane was simply a girl with dreams. Diane Abel was a 24-year-old young woman with a bright smile and big dreams. She lived in Arizona and studied accounting at the University of Arizona. That means she wanted to work with numbers, help businesses keep track of money, and maybe even open her own office one day. Diane wasn't just smart. She was kind too. Her friends said she always made people laugh and listened when they needed someone to talk to. She lived in a small dorm room on East Speedway Boulevard. It wasn't fancy, but it was her space. Her bed was always neatly made, her books were stacked in order, and her alarm clock never missed a beat. Diane liked things to be calm, quiet, and safe. She didn't get into trouble, and she wasn't the kind of girl to suddenly disappear. Her parents were proud of her. They told everyone how hard she worked in school. She didn't party too much, and she always called home to say she was okay. Her mom had a feeling that Diane was going to make it big. Maybe not in a flashy way, but in a strong, steady one. The kind that makes a family proud. Diane loved animals, especially dogs. When she was younger, she used to help walk the neighbors' pets just to be around them. She also liked the desert sunsets, the kind that painted the sky orange and pink. That was one of her favorite things about living in Arizona, how the sky looked just before the stars came out. She dreamed of one day having a home of her own, maybe with a small garden and a dog or two playing in the yard. She wanted a quiet life, filled with good books, honest work, and people who cared about her. She didn't ask for much, just peace. But sometimes, even the safest lives can be touched by darkness. On September 8th, 1988, something happened that no one expected. Diane's dreams, her laughter, and all her plans for the future were about to be stolen forever. Then came the night she vanished. It was late at night, September 8th, 1988. Most people in Diane's dorm were already asleep. The lights were off, the halls were quiet, and the city outside was calm. But something strange was about to happen. Around 1:30 in the morning, Diane left her room. Nobody knows exactly why. She didn't take her purse. She didn't take her keys. Her wallet was still sitting on the table. Even her bed looked untouched, like she was planning to come right back. But she never did. Her alarm rang in the morning, just like always. But this time, Diane didn't wake up to turn it off. Her roommate noticed she was gone. At first, maybe it didn't seem like a big deal. Maybe she had gone for a walk. Maybe she was at a friend's place. But as the hours passed, worry began to grow. Her friends tried calling her. No answer. Her teachers waited for her in class. She didn't show up. Then her parents were called. They hadn't heard from her either. When police came to check her room, nothing looked wrong. There were no signs of a fight. Nothing broken. Nothing taken. But something was deeply, terribly off. Diane was missing, and she hadn't taken anything with her. Soon, someone remembered seeing her at a local bar the night before. It was called the Bum Steer, a popular place for college students. That's where she was last seen, talking to a man named Doug. Doug was tall, friendly, and said he was visiting his brother Dave in Tucson. He drove a red truck with New York license plates. He seemed normal, but the truth is, no one ever saw him again after that night. No one could find Doug. No one could find Dave. No one could explain why Diane would leave in the middle of the night with nothing but the clothes on her back. She had vanished, and all that was left behind was silence. And at the center of the whispers and questions was one name: Doug. That was the name people kept hearing after Diane disappeared. Some people at the bar that night remembered her sitting with him. They said he seemed friendly, maybe even charming. He bought her a drink. They talked and laughed like two strangers just trying to pass the time. Nothing about him looked dangerous. Doug told Diane he was visiting his brother, someone named Dave, who lived nearby in Tucson. He said he was from New York and had driven all the way across the country in his red pickup truck. Some people noticed the truck parked outside. Others remembered it had a New York license plate. That was all anyone really knew. A name, a truck, a story. But here's the strange part. When the police tried to look for Doug and his brother Dave, there was no trace of either of them. No one named Doug checked into any nearby hotels. No one named Dave lived at the addresses Doug had mentioned. And the red truck? Gone. It was like Doug had appeared just for that night, and then disappeared into thin air. Police made a sketch of what he might have looked like. They asked people to come forward if they knew anything, but no one could say who Doug really was. Not one real clue. Not one solid lead. And that's what made everything even scarier. Was Doug using a fake name? Was his story about a brother just a lie to gain Diane's trust? And most important, did he hurt her? For years, Doug became the ghost of this case. A name with no face. A stranger with a red truck who walked into Diane's life one night and may have ended it. No one ever saw him again. And that's why, to this day, he's still the biggest mystery in Diane's story. But the silence grew heavier with each passing day, until the discovery no one wanted to face. For 5 long weeks, Diane's family and friends waited. They hoped she would come back. Every time the phone rang, her mom jumped. Every knock at the door made their hearts race. But Diane never came home. Then, one day in October 1988, something was found in the desert. A group of hunters were walking through a dry, quiet area northwest of Tucson, near Avra Valley. It was the kind of place where the sun burns hot and the wind whistles through empty land. Far from the city, far from help. That's where they saw something strange on the ground. At first, they didn't know what it was, but when they looked closer, their hearts sank. Bones. Scattered. Silent. Alone. The police were called right away. They carefully collected the remains and searched the area for clues. There were no clothes, no ID, no phone. Nothing that could tell them who the bones belonged to. Just the desert, holding a terrible secret. But then they checked the teeth, dental records, and that's how they knew it was Diane. Her family's worst fears had come true. The girl who loved sunsets and dogs was gone forever. No one knew how she got there. No one knew what had happened to her. The desert had taken her story and buried it deep beneath the sand and time. All anyone could say was this: Diane didn't leave on her own. Someone had taken her, and someone had left her there. With that heartbreaking discovery, the search shifted from finding Diane to finding the truth. When police confirmed that the bones in the desert belonged to Diane Abel, they knew they were no longer looking for a missing person. They were looking for a killer. At first, they worked hard. Detectives asked questions, followed leads, and went back to the Bum Steer Bar to speak with anyone who saw Diane that night. Everyone kept bringing up one name: Doug, the man with the red truck, the last person seen with her. But Doug was like smoke. He vanished. The truck with New York plates? Gone. His brother Dave? No one could find him. It was like the man never existed. Police made a sketch based on witness memories. They showed it to the public. They asked, "Do you know this man?" But nobody came forward. No one recognized him. No fingerprints, no footage, nothing. The years passed. Diane's family kept asking for updates. They hoped for answers. But each time, they heard the same thing. We're still looking. But after a while, the calls stopped. The headlines faded. The detectives were moved to other cases. New crimes needed solving, and Diane's file was quietly closed and marked as cold. A cold case means that police ran out of clues. The trail went dark. No arrests, no justice. Diane's family was left with only questions. Who was Doug, really? Why did he choose Diane? How did she end up in the desert? And most of all, why wasn't anyone caught? For decades, her case sat on a dusty shelf, like a forgotten story with no ending. But sometimes, stories don't stay buried forever. Just when it seemed like her story was fading into the past, a spark reignited the search for answers. For more than 30 years, Diane's case stayed cold. But in 2024, something changed. A new group of detectives looked at the case again. They believed that with today's technology, they might find something old investigators couldn't. Things like DNA testing and forensic genealogy, tools that didn't exist in 1988, could now give new answers. They opened the evidence box that had been sitting untouched for years. Inside were photos, old reports, and a tiny piece of fabric found near Diane's remains. It didn't seem like much, but with modern tools, even the smallest clue can speak loudly. They started retesting everything. They checked the bones again. They looked at dust, hair, and even the way her body was left in the desert. They searched for Doug's name in new databases. They asked, could he have done this before? Could he still be out there? And now they're asking for help. From you, from anyone watching, from the world. Someone, somewhere, knows who Doug is. Someone might remember a red truck, a face, a lie, a night at the Bum Steer Bar in 1988. It only takes one person to come forward. One memory, one voice. That could be the missing piece to finally give Diane justice. And now, her story needs you. Diane was more than a name in a file. She was a daughter, a friend, a student with dreams. She laughed. She loved animals. She wanted a peaceful life. But someone took that away. For over 30 years, her story sat in silence. But now, with your help, it doesn't have to. Please, if you know anything, even the tiniest detail, if you remember a red truck, a man named Doug, or a strange story from that time, don't keep it to yourself. Speak up. You could be the voice that finally brings justice to Diane and peace to her family. Share this video, leave a comment, and if you have any information, contact the Pima County Sheriff's Office, because no story should end in silence. Not Diane's, not anyone's. Because stories like Diane's shouldn't be forgotten. Hit subscribe, like, comment, and share to help these stories reach someone who might know the truth. At Case Crime Confidential, we uncover the stories others forgot, because justice delayed is not justice denied.